So, boys and girls, you are watching a new episode of English talk show interviews with my friend Sasha. What is the right pronunciation of your surname, by the way?
Shaduri.
Shaduri.
It's a Georgian surname.
Does it mean something?
Not that I know. I imagine it does something important, but no, in reality, no, it's just a surname.
Sasha, I was sure that you attended my English talk show several times, but now you recently told me that you've been there only once, but we stayed in touch for a long period of time, for 6 or 7 years.
That is true.
Yeah. So can you tell us who are you and what do we need to know about you as a person to feel you better?
Well, first of all, I'm a Rostovite. I'm a proud father of a 15-year-old.
15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He's almost a man now. 15 is.
Yeah.
He's my height. Anyhow, I'm an economist by training, and I'm an interpreter by profession. I do simultaneous interpreting, which is a bit of a rare profession.
Yeah.
Although I imagine it would be interesting to your audience. And anyhow, I like to control my language environment, and the discussion club is such a nice tool to keep your language sharp and fresh, keep yourself,
And can you tell us how do you keep your language sharp and fresh? You're probably not that much interested in some English club for amateurs, but what kind of socializing in English do you have?
Again, not much. Most of the socializing I do that has to do with foreign languages has to be work related, not because I want it that way, just because job tends to span to take large amounts of your life away.
And do you sometimes sorry, continue.
Yeah. Anyhow, I do not. All of the speaking I do in English has to be work related, but I'm a voracious reader. I watch a lot of movies, sometimes TV dramas, and if you're gonna watch a movie, right? Why don't you watch it in English?
Yeah.
So just to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. Anyhow, it seemed like having the contact number for a guy who runs a discussion club in English is important. And it turns out, really, I did send a lot of people your
to
way.
Me?
Yeah, because I get this question asked a lot. How do I sharpen my English?
Yeah. How can I socialize in English in Rostov?
Yeah, and for about 4 or 5 years now, my go-to answer was, there's this guy on the back. Yeah, go to him, he'll take care of you.
Thanks for that, Sasha.
You're very welcome, by the way. Everyone seems to be happy so far.
But still, do you sometimes feel that you are fed up with English? Do you feel tired of English?
No.
At the end of the day?
No, never. It is part of me. It is as much me, Alexander Shaduri, as it is anything else I love. And you see, it's not that I'm good at English because I'm an interpreter. It's the other way around. It's because I managed to surround myself with so many things English, books, movies, and music, etc., that it's I'm tuned in to it, I guess. Anyhow, I try to keep sharp, and it's always interesting. It always keeps me on edge, and that's why I'm a good interpreter. So it's, I think, first the interest towards the language, towards the culture, has to come first, and then the rest of your life sort of takes its shapes around.
I like to say that I made English my lifestyle. I mean, it's such an important part of my life.
Well, it is true for me as well. I would agree completely.
Yeah. So, Sasha, you must be good at simultaneous interpreting.
I hope so.
Do I call it correctly?
Yeah,
simultaneous interpreting.
That's what it's called.
Yeah. And people like you are supposed to think fast. And how does it affect your personality? I mean, you are like a computer making your interpreting.
Okay, I think first of
Are
all,
you good at multitasking? First of all,
no one is. It is increasingly my opinion that no one is good at multitasking. If a person tells you he is or she is, they are probably not as good as they think they are. Anyhow, short answer to your question is I think it makes me a better person. But
you mean simultaneous interpreter makes you a better person?
Absolutely. It makes me a more well-rounded person.
And you probably feel people better. I mean, because when you interpret someone, you must feel this person, even his emotions. And you must be good at understanding people, right?
Understanding, yes. Listening, yes, as well. It comes with the job. But mostly just imagine yourself sitting in a booth with a microphone, and there's 300 people listening to whatever you have to say. And there's some guy on stage like Tony Robbins or some sort of ambassador or minister or even some sort of professor giving a lecture. And you have to interpret him, right? And whatever you say, 300 people in the audience get to hear. And the trick is...
So they actually listen to you, not to that guy.
Well, they have one ear covered with the receiver, and so they can hear him perfectly because the other ear is open. However, they can hear my voice in the other earpiece. So anyhow, it is done so that if you understand the language, you don't need the translation. You can just hear it, listen to the guy, and if you need it, you just listen to the translation. Anyhow, when you do that, when you're in the booth, you're sort of in a hurry.
In a hurry.
Absolutely, because he keeps speaking, and there are no pauses for you to think in, and therefore you don't have time to think. Your speech has to be automatic, and like you don't. If you're thinking, then you're too late. If you have to think about what you need to say, then it's all lost. He's a few sentences ahead of you.
Yeah, but what can you say? How does it affect your personality? So maybe, according to what you say, maybe you digest information and act on this information without even thinking. Does it happen in your life?
Absolutely.
For example, your wife tells you to do something and you just do it without even thinking about it. By the way, is she good at English?
Well,
she's
decent.
Do you use English at home sometimes?
No, not.
I suggest when you have a quarrel in Russian, maybe it's a good idea for you to come down by trying to interpret what she says into English. Is it a good idea?
It is the strangest thing. We don't have fights and like quarrels and fights.
That is just my piece of advice. To come down, you can interpret someone.
And if I may, I'd like to go back to my previous thought. And so you were speaking about being a better person. I was speaking about being a better person. So my thinking is, when you are sitting there in the booth and you're just speaking your mind into the mic, you have no time to think. You have no filter. Absolutely, you just.
Yeah, you can't even go to the toilet.
Well, you can. You have a partner, right? If you need 5 minutes break, you just ask your partner to take the mic off of you and just pop out. Anyhow, what I'm telling you is, when you let your unconscious mind, when you let your subconscious mind just speak away at the microphone, and there is audience, and you know that someone is there is judging you, and someone there is relying on you, and it sort of teaches you one thing. It teaches you to trust yourself. And that's why I think it's very therapeutic. It makes me a more well-rounded person. Just this experience. I think not many jobs offer that, like DJ probably, some sort of keynote speaker, this sort of responsibility and this sort of opportunity to speak English in front of the audience. And then get to increasingly trust yourself.
Yeah, and you become someone's voice.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a responsibility in and of itself.
So you could definitely promote English everywhere. So imagine that in Russia of the future you are paid a lot for promoting English as a second language. And you have unlimited funding at your disposal. What would you do to motivate 90% of the population to master English, to learn English properly?
Okay, I've two ideas about that, and I need your opinion.
Good.
First of all, let's take you from tobacco industry and let's get them young, right? Let's make sure there are some sort of courses or playgrounds where kids from kindergarten to early school
Who teach how to smoke tobacco? What do you
school
mean?
children. No, I'm saying that the tobacco industry had always had this motto of getting young,
Mhm.
and if the idea being if a
In the very
person
beginning of
gets
their life.
gets
Get them
hooked on tobacco at the early years, they will probably smoke throughout their life.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the same idea. Let's get them interested. Let's get them hooked on English.
Yeah, you're right, because I was hooked at the age of 7 probably.
Yeah, it
Thanks to my parents.
was about 8 or 7 for me as well, and it was thanks to my mom. I think it was quite a
Yeah,
similar
it was a
situation
very good
for me.
investment.
It wasn't that at that age. It wasn't that I understood what was happening. I could barely understand what is, and I could never construct a coherent sentence. That never happened. And then I had this huge break, and that somehow when English classes started for me at grade 9 or grade 10, grade 8 or something like that, with the switch of the school, somehow I realized that I understand the most of what my teacher says. And somehow I realized it's not that difficult, just speaking another language. But most of all, I think it's that early kernel of understanding, right? That early kernel of interest that got planted into in early childhood that carried me all these years.
Good. And what is the second option?
Oh yes,
idea?
second option. This has been a topic of research for me, and in the whole field of linguistics, there is this figure of Stephen Krashen. I'm not sure if you
Never heard of him.
you never heard of him. So basically, he was a linguist. He had this idea that we are not born a tabula rasa. We are not born an empty slate.
Tabula rasa.
Tabula rasa. Oh, how do you pronounce that?
Tabula, what do you say?
Rasa.
Rasa.
It's Latin. It's
Ah,
Latin.
But it is connected with race. I mean,
No, it's empty tablet.
Uh-huh.
So an empty slate,
Mhm.
something that has nothing on it, so you can write anything. It was this idea that any child is this empty slate, and whatever you teach the child, the child will become that what you teach it. And of course, that is absolutely untrue. We are not empty slates. We are born with extensive machinery inside our brains that let us pick up languages at extraordinary speeds. Like, for example, this is a real life scientific problem. How do we acquire language so quickly early in life? It is the problem is properly called poverty of stimulus. So basically, the idea is a child gets very little exposure to language, like only his parents or his or her parents, or other child is in English.
Very little exposure to
language.
his own language.
Of course. So when a child is 1 or 2 years old, well, who gets to speak with them with it?
No one.
His parents and close relatives and maybe in a circle of friends. And it's not often, right? It's not that like you can get a baby to talk to you about football or politics or business, right? They can barely speak a word. And yet somehow, by age 3 or 4, they are very proficient at speaking very difficult languages, including Russian.
Yeah.
How is that? How is so little stimulus, so little information
There
to
must
learn
be something very special about their young brain, probably.
on?
I mean, they get the information like a sponge.
Well,
They get little, but they get many skills, probably.
this is what linguistics science think about it, and you tell me if you think it's true or not. What science think is that a child's brain already has most of its grammar inside on hardware level, like it's wired inside the brain itself. That's why all the languages in the world have similar structures. Like every single language has nouns, verbs, adverbs. It's how we think.
Yeah, that's why I call English language a very good programming language. I mean, it's almost created for robots.
I disagree with you.
It is very structured.
There. No, it can be so beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
I've
even written a poem in English, you know.
You did?
Yeah. But
is it good?
I don't know, it's hard to judge, but it will be published later, someday, maybe.
Good for you. You should get it published, by the way. As always, you should always do what's uncomfortable, what's scary. It's always a good practice to go against the what is it?
Yeah, don't worry. Again, the herd or whatever.
Yeah, you have to overcome things in your life. Otherwise, you're just not living.
So,
anyhow, we're back to the idea about the brain, and you can probably cut this all off because.
No, it's very interesting. Don't worry.
And so the thing is, these nouns, these verbs, this understanding of the world in terms of objects, what they do, the verbs, right, and how they do what they do, the adverbs. So these things are already wired in the brain. Programmed, yes. And so when a child listens to his or her mom, he already has most of the grammar already figured out. And it's just the pieces of the puzzle that have to fit in these specific, in their specific places for the child to truly pick up language.
Yeah, and back to our original question, according to what you say, it is better to have as many people speaking different languages as possible around the child, because he will take all those languages like a sponge, all those skills, speaking skills and everything.
The important part is not actual exposure to, it's not exposure to language rather than exposure to sounds. There have been studies done, and so what they found, basically, if a child gets exposed to a certain language before age 3 or 4, you know how the French people pronounce certain sounds and don't pronounce certain other sounds, and how an S sound is vastly different from Spain to Russia to Turkey. That's the idea, because the sounds in different languages are a little bit different, and if the child gets exposed to a particular sound early in life, it is easier for him or her to recognize.
He'll get good pronunciation.
And also hearing, making the sound out of the noise is also easier, so that is important. Other than that, I think it's the environment completely. I mean, you take a 50-year-old and get him or her to live in Great Britain without any sort of contact in Russian, I'll guarantee you in a year that person will probably be quite proficient. So anyhow, the idea about Stephen Prussian hypothesis, he had several hypotheses about the languages and how we acquire them. Notice he never said learning. He's not talking about learning, he's talking about acquiring languages. And that's
I'm also against learning.
A more natural process. It's how the babies do it. And so, amazingly, some of the hypotheses, by the way, proved true. Some of them were proven wrong, proven false. Amazingly, the hypothesis that was absolutely, definitely true said that the quickest way to learn is when the input is comprehensible. It's called the comprehensible input theory, or
when you hear something you can understand.
That you can understand even before you heard it. Like if it's your favorite movie, say you love Lion King or some such, and you've watched it dozens of times, and suddenly it struck you to watch it in some sort of.
Maybe it's a good idea to practice a foreign language with a woman you love, according to what you say. It's a good idea.
Whatever floats your boat, I guess. It has to come natural, and so let me wrap that long segment up. Uh,
What would you do to
about the
motivate?
comprehensible language, comprehensible input. In order to make a person learn really, really quickly, you need to do three things. First of all, you need to give them some basic like cubes, like children's playthings. You can like Lego pieces out of which the person can construct simple sentences. And you need to start speaking with the person from day one, from the first time you, as a teacher, you met him. You should start speaking, or rather try speaking English. Second part is a little tricky. You should never correct people. Like, it's not what you do as a
That's
teacher.
why I avoid any corrections during my English talk show.
Well,
It's pointless.
and rude. What's no? It's not what polite people do correctly. And the thing is, you don't have to be an English teacher. You have to be an English parent. If you think about it, what a parent does with a child, when your child, say you have a 2-year-old, and the speech pattern of 2-year-olds, I don't know if you know this or not, they are completely chaotic, right? So they're trying to make noises at you, and you try to make out what they're trying to say. And so the English parent, as opposed to English teacher, would never correct a child, and you would apply, you would try as much as you can to understand what the person meant. So it's not your job to correct, it's not your job to tell how the correct sentence should be, because it's a language, right? There's no correct way, no one correct way. There's always many different, slightly different ways to say the same things with maybe slight variations in meaning. So, yeah, you have to be an English parent. Sorry about this.
Don't worry.
And the third part about comprehensible input is, yeah, the material you work with, the person should be familiar with to at least some extent. For example, a person is a big fan of sports cars, so you can get a sports car magazine in English for him to read, or it's a favorite movie or favorite topic or anything of that sort. And given these three things, and I think applied to some sort of children's schools, I think we could get the most effect, probably. There's one example I also was thinking about, the Lebanon. It's a little country in Africa. It's mostly Muslim, but it's always been, this between things, in between the empires. So they were always trading people rather than anything else. And so all of the Lebanese people somehow spoke, at least all of the Lebanese that I've been in contact with, spoke absolutely wonderful English. Yeah, near perfect. And when I asked them how did they manage to do that, and you know that when business people come all over to Russia, they take their wives and sometimes kids, because it's a trip. Like, how often do you get the chance to visit a foreign country? And even the kids speak perfect English, and the spouses. What they told me is that all of the television in Lebanon is in English. Most of the entertainment is in English.
That's a very good idea.
They have subtitles and never voiceover, and that's how the whole country is cooked.
It's so good.
And the pronunciations are quite amazing as well. So I'm a big fan of Lebanese. I'm not sure if this will work in Russia. Probably won't, because
not so many people interested in this, I'm afraid. I mean, I'll tell you what I think. I believe that knowing a foreign language is almost like installing an additional operating system to your mind. And maybe some people, some high people are not interested in that, because when many people know foreign languages, it's harder to control them. Because it's very difficult to break that operating system.
Let me give you another angle to look at it. The more open the country, the more things there is to do in that country that make you money
Yeah.
and are connected to foreign language. Like if you live in some sort of Switzerland,
Mm-hmm.
you're speaking three languages there just by the
You
virtue
can
of
go
being born
everywhere.
there.
You can do whatever you want.
And still, it's quite important. English is important, despite it not being a state language, etc., etc. So, when it's an open country, you have lots of jobs like mine. I'm quite lucky to land and do what I do,
Mm-hmm.
but at least I consider myself to be. But when there's lots of jobs like that in service and hospitality,
It's better for everyone.
and there's more English speakers and they're better off. So I'm thinking hopefully if we get towards a more open, liberal
Society.
environment and
Yeah.
society, maybe the English will be more prevalent.
Yeah. Sasha, let's talk about your skills. So, do you consider yourself a good simultaneous interpreter?
Of course,
Good.
I have a
Okay, I have a question to you. What are the signs of a good simultaneous interpreter and a bad one?
Signs. No, there's no signs.
No particular
It's
sign.
it's like the profession sees there's so many different people, and it's such a diverse group.
Mm-hmm.
You can never know. Like I have a friend has the same job as me. He's a captain, right? And he's one season out of 4 every year. He's on this boat in some sort of Arctic conditions, working as a captain, and it's quite a lifestyle, I guess. And you can never know from the outset, right? You can only see if a person is a good interpreter.
Yeah, it is subjective anyway, probably.
There are some really nasty people who are, who behave unethically. But properly, we are there's so much difference between very good and respectable interpreters. There's probably one of the only common signs is somehow related to age, because there's no good simultaneous interpreters, perhaps younger than 25 or 30.
Yeah.
So I would say more of a profession, an older
So
profession.
the older you get, the better you become.
Absolutely, because you need the experience you need before you can even start simultaneous. There's this consecutive interpreting thing, which is done when people stop speaking, give you pause, and you get this whole time for yourself to translate everything that's been said. And then you stop, and the person goes again, and so on and so forth. And if you do that for 5 or 6 years, you're probably ready to try yourself in a booth. And that's how it's been for me. So what I'm thinking is, what was the question again?
The question was about signs of a bad and a good interpreter.
There are none, probably. If you can be a good interpreter, it shows, and it shows in the confidence of your voice when you're in the booth, in the structure of what you're saying, because it's a difficult environment, and sometimes your grammar is off, or some of the words may sound off, and if you don't do that, then you're, I presume, a good interpreter. So you can only tell if one is a good one if you put him in the booth and see how well he's at interpreting.
Good. And now let's get a little bit philosophical, and I like these kind of questions. Do you agree that life is pointless, and how can we make it interesting?
Oh, absolutely. Like I'm absolutely.
You mean absolutely pointless?
I think the Buddhists are right, and that life itself is suffering, like all of it.
Do you suffer at this very moment?
No.
Do you enjoy it?
Absolutely.
Good.
See, it's a drone, right? You have to wake up, and then you have to look presentable, then you have to work, and then you have to go buy something to eat. It's a chore. And the Buddhists have long noticed that whatever pleasures you get in life, they never satisfy you. Candy may taste sweet, but in 5 minutes it's gone, and you go back to suffering again. And so the only it's it ties to it's a philosophy, but it ties to being a man and living like a man. So what it means is, yeah, there's suffering, but you can live your life in a manner like wear it like a banner or something. You can instead of living your life a miserable, hunched creature afraid of life, you can instead stand straight and upright, and you can say, okay, life is difficult. Let me be an example. Let me live my life in a way that will make my son's life better, my wife's life better, my friend's life better, maybe some random guy's day a little brighter. Let me live in a way that, well, that brings the best of myself into the world. And that's how you combine it. That's the only real way you can bear it. You know it's true. You can feel it.
I fully agree with you.
The real thing that gives life meaning is responsibility. As soon as you can take responsibility for yourself or for your family or for, it's a gradual process, right? For then you take responsibility for some piece of job you have to be responsible for.
So you live your life struggling, but you enjoy the struggle.
I don't mind the struggle, really.
I don't mind either. I mean, I like a formula.
It's if you are really gonna be philosophical, think about it this way. There's so much empty space in the universe. Like, I don't believe in aliens, by the way, because there's probably some aliens somewhere, but not here, never. Because everybody nowadays has a smartphone with a camera. So like 4 or 5 billion people with cameras are walking across the planet. They can take instant picture of anything flying in the sky, and we have seen not a single picture.
They're just too distant, you know.
But don't you think we should have more evidence by now?
I don't know.
So what I'm thinking is, if there's so much, there's probably they're just too far away for us to notice, like the other end of the galaxy, and so we're, for all intents and purposes, we're alone here. And so, if we are so alone, if there's so much emptiness, and our life is a constant struggle for, I don't know, survival, food, whatever, right? It's just so beautiful, the whole thing. It cannot be.
Sasha, let's get less philosophical. I have a very particular question to you.
I was about to formulate the thing.
Don't worry.
Anyhow, it is not. It has to, in the final analysis, make some sense. And I think the sense is that we are here to experience this beauty. Otherwise, the nature has. If there's no one to see it, why then? Why these vast expanses exist at all?
We're here to experience this beauty, alright.
The Buddhists think we are nature experiencing itself. There's no we, there's no you or I. We are all the same thing. We are all nature experiencing itself.
Okay, Sasha, what could you say to a 20-year-old Sasha?
Oh.
You seem to be relatively mature at the moment. What could you say to a 20-year-old Sasha?
Wow. Drink less. Exercise more. Eat healthy. I don't know. Use suntan.
Yeah, that's enough.
I'm quite happy with my decisions. I don't know what I would change. Probably nothing.
But wait, what type of people are you attracted to?
Smart people. People I like people who engage me intellectually, so I could discuss some ideas, maybe some even very outlandish ideas. I guess you noticed.
And what do you think about people who are flexible in terms of their views?
aren't we all flexible?
I don't know. Is it an important trait of character, being flexible?
I guess so. What are we if not flexible? If you could perhaps rephrase the question, I could be more useful to you.
Yeah, so you probably understand what flexibility is. I mean, I like those people who can change their mind, who at least listen to you even when they don't agree with you.
Oh, it's absolutely a prerequisite. I mean, if we're disagreeing, it's not a non-starter for a conversation, right? We still can talk. We still can discuss. We still, even though we disagree, we don't have to be enemies. I fully support this proposal of yours.
Now let's get very practical. What does money mean to you? A lot.
I try to think that it's not much, but it's a means to an end. I try not to give it too much of an importance and emphasis, and I'm again lucky to have experienced life in what you may call a commune. So it's an environment where it's almost like one large family. So of course, no money exchange inside the group, no economy that we would understand as such, and it's almost like a natural way to live. There's a waterfall instead of a shower. There's the sea and the trees, and if you need some tea, you can go make some fire and go make yourself your own tea. It will take you a couple of hours to get there, but it's a fun experience along the ride. So what I'm thinking is, money does not have to be the most important or most prevalent thing on your mind, and there are many ways to live that will
Even
not,
without money, without too much money.
not even without what I'm saying is there are the ways when you live and you do not put money as a first priority to you. I think any way that has that is a superior way of life. It's more in touch, less driven, more grounded, and more mature way of living a life.
Sasha, we've almost finished, but I have a very interesting exercise for you. It will probably take just 1 minute. I've sent you a voice message on WhatsApp. And
let's try that.
Yeah, and you will listen to it using your earphones, and you will try to make your simultaneous interpreting.
Which is the direction of the translation?
From Russian to English.
From Russian to English.
But it shouldn't be a problem.
Let's try that. I hope
let's try.
There's.
And then I will read the original text in Russian.
Oh, do you wanna do that exercise?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try. Oh.
And it's your very first time you hear it.
Yeah, this is indeed my first time. Okay, so I'm hitting play here. On behalf of the Honduras Federation, we do greet our partners from the Martian Federative Republic. We'd like to note the broadening of the cooperation between our countries and the creation of the common confederation. Our economy and joint efforts completely are increasingly growing. The friendship with the Martian Confederation is an alliance for us important in the modern day environment. You're speaking way too quickly for me.
Really?
I mean, this isn't something you would encounter. I think I failed miserably.
No worry.
At trying to translate this piece. So, is it some sort of sci-fi novel?
No, I just wrote them. So the original was about. Sorry for using my Russian. От имени Гондурасской Федерации приветствуем наших партнеров из Марсианской Федеративной Республики. Хотелось бы отметить расширение сотрудничества между нашими странами, бла-бла-бла. So it was...
Was I close? 'Cause
Yeah, you were very close, don't worry.
I can barely remember what I said.
Mhm.
This is one of the quirks of my profession. 'Cause you can never tell after you finish translating. You can almost never remember what was being discussed.
Yeah, you were completely correct at the beginning, so it's...
Yeah, it's the middle part that.
Yeah, it was supposed to sound like an address of some president to some nation, you know.
It was. You. I noticed you started speaking more and more quickly with the voice time. So, yeah, that was a little.
I should have been slower, probably.
Or the subject matter could have been more close and more familiar to me. It also helps.
Yeah, Sasha, now it's your part. Maybe you have some questions or something you'd like to say to our viewers.
Oh, I'm quite exhausted. But anyhow, if you are with Alibek trying to learn English or trying to practice and hone your English, do stay the course. It's definitely worth the while. And remember, bilingual people live longer.
Yeah, that's true. Sasha, thank you so much for participating in this interview. Usually I give some stupid vouchers as a present, but it's not the case today. So I have something special. And I tried to ask you how it is called in English, but well, can we call it marmalade?
I think it's marmalade.
Yeah,
By
so
the way,
pas-
thanks
pastilla.
for having me.
Yeah. So it is your present. Hopefully you will enjoy it with your family. It is absolutely natural from my hometown, Nalchik.
Oh, okay, thank you,
Made
sir.
of apples.
It looks appealing, and I have quite a sweet tooth myself,
Good,
so
good.
it will definitely come in handy.
Thank you so much, Sasha. You are a very interesting interviewee.
It was my pleasure.
So, boys and girls, you were watching English talk show interviews with Alexander. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.